Jakobi Meyers has requested a trade from the Raiders. We'll tell you who that'll impact with the Las Vegas Raiders next.
You are Locked On Dynasty Football, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Football season is right around the corner. Visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your futures bets now. Welcome back. I am Marcus Mosher. He is Michael Fabiano. And on today's show, we are taking a look at all the news across the NFL, including Kenny Pickett being traded to the Raiders, what that means for Shedeur Sanders and Dylan Gabriel. We'll talk about that Houston backfield, which is an absolute problem right now. But Fabs, I want to start with this. Jakobi Meyers, the Raiders' #1 receiver, requested a trade on Monday because contract talks have not been going well, apparently. Let's start here. How much do you think his value could improve if he's dealt?
Obviously, it depends on the team that acquires him in some sort of. I don't want him to go anywhere because what I saw last season was a wide receiver who had 87 catches. He was a wide receiver 19. He was a big part of the Raiders offense. Now, they were short on talent last year and they improved in that spot. There's no question about that. Outside of Brock Bowers, there was really no competition. It was really Bowers and Meyers for the target. So that could change this season. But how many times have we heard a player ask for a trade and then end up back with the team that he was originally with, right? Terry
McLaurin. Twice yesterday, right? Trey Hendrickson and Terry McLaurin.
Yeah, I don't know what's going to happen with Micah Parsons. That seems a little bit more combative, but that's for the Locked On Cowboys podcast to discuss. Meyers, to me, even though he was a wide receiver 2 last year, is more of a wide receiver 3 this year. Wide receiver 3 flex type, because the Raiders did bring in more weapons, including bringing back Amari Cooper, who they drafted so many years ago, brought him in on a 1-year deal. But Amari's kind of a shell of what he used to be. I mean, in the 6 games that he played with the Browns and 8 with the Bills last year, he had 547 yards, 4 touchdowns on 85 targets. He just didn't seem to be the same kind of playmaker he was even a couple of seasons ago. So if Meyers sticks, then you've got Meyers, Coop, Deontay Thornton, who's everyone's raving about, Trey Tucker, and Jack Besh, all vying for playing time. And let's not forget, Bowers is also going to be the leader in targets on that team. So let's keep that in mind.
On a run-heavy team, right? Like that's a team that wants to be very, very balanced.
Correct. And if Meyers goes, and if he is traded, then obviously everyone else's stock rises. Now, Cooper's old, okay? Well, not
he signed a 1-year, $3.5 million max deal.
Right, exactly. So he's old comparatively, not like compared to me or some others, but he's, for a wide receiver, let's just say his best seasons are behind him. But in his career, he's run 80% of his routes out on the perimeter. Trey Tucker, 74% of his routes out on the perimeter. Meyers, 46% of his routes on the inside. So he can play on the outside and the inside. You lose that kind of versatility. Jack Besh ran 70% of his routes on the perimeter last year at TCU. Although if Meyers gets traded, then Besh could end up playing that slot role. Yes. And Thornton is almost exclusively a perimeter receiver. So there's a world where we're looking at a starting lineup potentially of 2 rookies and Amari Cooper.
He just wants me to go out and get Brock Bowers even more. Like he's just going to get 1 million targets. But I think for Jakobi Meyers, like his best situation from a fantasy perspective is to stay in Las Vegas, right? Because he will be the de facto #1 receiver. If he gets traded, I don't see any team acquiring Jakobi Meyers and him being the top target getter. And some of the teams that have been rumored to be sniffing around or like the Patriots, right? Like Meyers goes back to New England and now he's playing, that slot outside with Stephon Diggs. They've got Kyle Williams. They've got 1 million other receivers. And the other team is Pittsburgh, right? And you would be playing probably some more in the slot with DK Metcalf on the outside. I don't like any of those situations better for Jakobi Meyers for his fantasy upside. So in this case, I hope he gets a new deal and I hope he stays in Las Vegas because that's the best outcome for him. However, again, as someone who has Brock Bowers in a million different dynasty leagues, I wouldn't hate if we just gave him more targets. That'd be fine with me.
What about the Jets?
So I think that makes sense from like a real life perspective, but that's the same thing. It's a low volume pass offense with Garrett Wilson already installed as the wide receiver one. Like I just there's no
But nobody else. So
but there's
Myers
no
would end up
upside
being
there,
in the
though.
same situation he was last year, where Bowers was the one and he's kind of the two in terms of the target share.
Yeah, but I think you have a quarterback who's going to throw the ball a lot less than what we saw the Raiders throw the ball last year.
I don't think that would be a bad. I'd rather have him stay in Las Vegas, obviously, but I don't think the Jets would be a bad situation. I mean, because I know they're going to run the ball a lot, but they got to throw the damn ball a little bit. I mean, there's enough targets in the passing game for Garrett Wilson to eat and for Jakobi Meyers to eat. I don't know if the Jets would entertain such a move, but yeah, the best case scenario for him is to stay in Las Vegas. And again, how many times have guys come out and said, "I want to be traded"? Now, Micah went a little bit further because it's personal, but
more often than not, they stay.
And they end up sticking with the team. Right. It's just, scrubbing their social medias, saying they want to be traded. It's all part of the song and dance that owners do with players and agents, unless you're Jerry Jones and then you don't want to talk to an agent.
Last thing before we move on here. Between Thornton and Bash, the two rookie receivers, if Myers were to be traded, whose value do you think goes up the most?
Well, Bash, because he'd potentially be starting.
Bingo.
Right. Okay. Right now, I wouldn't project him to be one of the top 3 wide receivers for the Raiders. I think Trey Tucker is up there ahead of him. And now you have Amari Cooper in there as well. So I don't know that listen, I mean, he's 31 years old, but if he comes in and gets 85 targets, then that's going to put a dent in everybody else's, lunch pail. So I would guess, Bash, his value would go up insofar as he'd move into more of a prominent role. I don't know that it would make him ultimately and significantly more valuable in Dynasty, but his role would increase.
Does it make you worried about Geno Smith at all if Jakobi Meyers does end up leaving?
No, because I don't know what kind of rapport those two have. I mean, they're new teammates. They've had the offseason and training camp and a little preseason to get work together. But no, it wouldn't concern me at all.
All right, let's talk about the Houston running back situation because we had a big domino fall on Monday afternoon. Let's talk about Joe Mixon next. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. August 26th is officially FanDuel Futures Day, a brand new holiday for football fans who live for bold predictions and preseason hunches. And for just 24 hours, FanDuel is giving you deals on NFL season predictions. So whether you're calling your MVP, eyeing a long shot division winner, or you're ready to crown your Super Bowl champ in week 1 before the season even kicks off, this is your moment. So take a flyer on the MVP race. I kind of like Joe Burrow this year. I think he's going to put up monster numbers now that Jamar Chase and T. Higgins are both back. They've worked on that offensive line. Or maybe you're ready to crown your Super Bowl champ in August. I think the Ravens might have the best roster in the league. I don't think they're a bad pick. Or you can parlay your division winner dark horses for an awesome payout. Visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your futures bets now because Futures Day is one day and one day only. FanDuel, play your game. Welcome back to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. We have an important request for you guys. Locked On wants to hear from you. We've been putting together a survey to learn more about our listeners and make your favorite podcast even better. This is your chance to tell us what you like, what you don't like, and answer questions about our advertising. So go to lockedonpodcast.com/survey to get started. Everyone who completes a survey will be entered for a chance to win one of 10 $100 Amazon gift cards. Again, that is lockedonpodcast.com/survey. And you can also find the link in the show notes. Thanks again for helping us out. All right. Fabs, let's talk about Joe Mixon. He's going on the PUP list officially. That was announced from Adam Schefter. That means he's out at least the first 4 games. It sounds like Nick Chubb is going to be the starting running back in week 1. They have Woody Marks, who they traded up for in the 4th round. What's your read on this entire Houston backfield now that we know for sure Mixon is out for at least a month?
I don't want to touch it. With a 39.5-foot pole, as the Grinch would say. Yeah, I just, so I don't know what is going on with that foot with Mixon, the foot ankle combo, but like this has lingered on for a long, long time. And I think I said something on the podcast earlier that I don't know that he's going to be back, right? I mean, like, will he miss half the season? Is he going to be eventually okay to play the second half of the year? Like, I don't know. In my running back rankings and redrafts, I mean, I dropped them all the way down to like 79. And even at that point, I would only draft him if I had an injured reserve spot that I could stash him in. And the same thing goes for any kind of dynasty startup. I mean, he has lost a ton of value. Remember, this is a player who in the first half of last year was legitimately one of the best running backs in fantasy football. He was awesome. I think he had 11 touchdowns. He was phenomenal. And then the wheels fell off down the stretch. And I mean, he was almost unstartable, even though it was really hard to sit him because he's Joe Mixon. And his entire offseason, he's had time to heal, and it hasn't worked out. I'm not sure what's going on. As I always say, I'm not a doctor. I don't play one on a podcast, and I didn't stay at a Holiday Inn last night. So I don't exactly know what the prognosis is. I would say this. I don't want anything to do with that Houston backfield. I don't. Nick Chubb, when your head coach comes out, and I'm not quoting him here, but, D'Amico Ryans basically said, just not the same dude. 29 years old, had that massively just gruesome knee injury a couple of years ago. Did not look like the same player last year. The offensive line is major question marks in Houston. And I think this is going to be a committee ultimately. And you remember Dameon Pierce, like we're digging this guy up, like we're exhuming him from his fantasy grave because he was good in his rookie year and then he just fell off a cliff. Mm-hmm. And to think that all of a sudden Dameon Pierce is going to be something when the Texans didn't even want to use him last year, I don't know about that. You've got Dario Gunwali in there as well and Woody Marks, and like this is going to be a backfield committee. If a guy is hot in a certain week, they'll use him. If anything, from a fantasy standpoint, this just might improve the value of the passing game because they're going to have a hard time running the football, and that might mean they need to throw with C.J. Stroud and Nico Collins, of course. They may need to throw the football. Could be good news for Jaden Higgins as well and Christian Kirk, Dalton Schultz. But this backfield is not one that I have any excitement about drafting whatsoever. In fact, if I can run and hide from it, much like a teenager at Crystal Lake, it's getting closer and closer to Halloween. They have the Halloween stuff up at Lowe's already, Marcus. And I love my horror movies.
So
I want nothing to do with this backfield, man. Woody Marks in Dynasty. Okay. Yeah, he's not going to cost me a lot. We'll see what happens. I just wonder if the Texans featured back for 2026 is not even on this roster.
I would expect that to be the case. Well, one of the things that I know is even before the Mixon stuff all came out, right? Like Brandon Thorne, who is an offensive line expert who does great work at Establish the Run, he had the Texans offensive line ranked as the worst in the league, right? So I already thought that whoever was going to be running behind this offensive line was going to struggle. Now that we know Joe Mixon is out for at least the first 4 games, we got a report from Adam Schefter yesterday on a radio podcast. Like there's a chance that he just doesn't play at all this year. This has been an injury that has lingered, I think, since February
for
or
way
March.
Too long.
Yeah. And they have had no answers. Like it gets a little better and then it gets worse. So like, I don't think there's any update as to when this is going to, turn around. I'm all out on Mixon. Chubb is a guy that, I mean, if you need like a flex for like a week or so, I guess you start him, but you don't feel great about it at all. Woody Marks, I like, but how much action is he going to get as a rookie? I don't know. I want nothing to do with this backfield from a dynasty perspective. I'm not aggressively trading for Woody Marks because I'm with you. I think the starting running back for the Texans in 2026 is not on the roster. He's probably playing college football right now.
Right, exactly. And I mean, Nick Chubb would be the most attractive this season right now, but he would be, I think, very touchdown dependent. because he does not catch the ball out of the backfield. So they will be utilizing, one of Ogunbowale, Pierce, Marks, whatever the rotation ends up being as the third down back, as a guy who's going to catch the ball out of the backfield. And Nick Chubb is not a guy who's going to rush for 100 yards every week anymore. He's just not. He's just not, man. I mean, and I loved watching him play. He was one of my favorite. There was a point, Marcus, that I thought that Nick Chubb was the best pure running back in the National Football League. I'm not talking about in terms of being versatile, the best pure running back in the National Football League. It's just not the case anymore.
I'll make this case for you. I thought for the first 5 years of their careers, the best running back from the 2018 draft was not Saquon Barkley. It was Nick Chubb. Right? I honestly, you look at their careers, and Chubb was healthier, produced more, averaged more yards per carry. It's just that the injuries really started to catch up with him, because not only did he have that massive injury in 2023, he had a massive knee injury in college. And
yes, he did.
You just wonder how much can one guy take?
Yeah, exactly. So he is very touchdown dependent. If he rushes for 65 yards and doesn't get you in the end zone, you're not looking at a very good week-to-week total. So he's got to hope that he can get inside that red zone and get some opportunities in there, because I think he will be that banger once they get inside that green zone area. But I'm with you. I would not want to take a chance on any of these guys. I mean, hell, not even in redraft.
No, I'm just avoid. One other running back situation before we get to the quarterback that was traded yesterday. We did have a little bit of an update for the Cowboys running back situation. Phil Maffa, their seventh round pick, who a lot of people liked, he's going on the injured reserve list with a shoulder injury. I'm using air quotations here. Shoulder injury, away for the Cowboys to stash him for a little bit. Javonte Williams did not play at all in the preseason, which tells you what they think of him. Jaden Blue played into the third quarter, played on special teams. He's dealing with an ankle injury. He's back at practice. They have Miles Sanders, but is it just as simple as start Javonte Williams as a flex, and then we'll see by the time we get halfway through the year?
That's it. And it's not going to be rewarding. Let's put it that way. And forget about Miles Sanders. I know you've liked him. I hate Miles Sanders as a fantasy player. He's not any good. And I don't even think he's draftable, to be quite honest with you. Obviously, Blue is going to be drafted because of his youth and the potential for him to play maybe a, Darren Sproles-esque, offensive role. He's not Darren Sproles, but the Cowboys backfield is going to be crap. I mean, we talk about the Texans backfield being, yucky. Yucky is a term that, we used to use when we were kids, right? Now it's cringe, whatever the case may be, whatever the kids are saying these days, but the Cowboys backfield is very cringy. There's no one, that's got any fire potential. No one who's Aura 1000, all the good stuff. Marcus is looking at me like, what the hell are you talking about, Fabiano? Listen, I have a 15-year-old stepson. I know all the lingo. So Javonte Williams is going to be a flex at best for you. That's it. I mean, the only good thing is at least he's in an offense where he should get a lot of work, and he's still in the prime of his career. I miss the days of when I really felt good about him before that injury that he suffered a couple of years ago.
I expect Javonte Williams to be competent, right? But I don't know if that's necessarily what you want to hear from like a guy that you're going to be starting week in.
If it's Rico Dowdle, then it's a win.
Right. And maybe that, honestly, I think that's what they're hoping for. Like Rico Dowdle was nothing before last year. He was a 25, 26-year-old running back, was struggled with neck injuries. Williams is younger. I don't think he's quite as explosive anymore, but I still am of the belief, Fabs, that the Cowboys are going to take the first month of the season, play the veterans, and then just reevaluate things once we get into October. Like, hey, is Jaden Blue ready to go? Is Phil Maffa ready to go? Do we need to go out and trade for a running back? Is Breece Hall available? I just think everything is up in the air. I wouldn't get too attached to a single take when it comes to the Cowboys running backs, but it does feel like Javonte is going to be the clear-cut starter to at least open the season.
Yep, and that's going to be the case. And, who knows? In the mind of Marcus Mosher, the Cowboys are going to trade for Breece Hall, or going to trade for a running back at some point.
I don't really want them to do that.
Okay, but by the way, I was watching the documentary last night. I'm almost done with it, and you and I can talk about this, off camera. But I missed the time when the Cowboys would actually go out and aggressively get really good free agents like Deion Sanders, which I
did too.
Rarely do anymore.
Go listen to Locked On Cowboys. We talk about that all the time. How about that for a shameless plug? All right, let's talk about Kenny Pickett, who was traded for a third time in 2 years now. Why did the Raiders do that? We'll get to that next. This episode is brought to you by Yahoo Fantasy. The NFL season is almost here, and you can feel the buzz. Fantasy football season is right around the corner. Everyone's researching, drafting, and building their championship squads. And if you haven't joined a league yet, now's the time to do so. And it's all happening on Yahoo Fantasy. This year, I'm playing fantasy football on Yahoo Fantasy, and you should too, whether you're a first-timer or a veteran making your millionth league. Yahoo Fantasy is loaded with fun ways to compete and brand new features that make the game even better. And with the season kickoff on September 4th, now is the time to start playing Yahoo Fantasy Football, which offers so many fun ways to compete, including the Yahoo Fantasy Guillotine Leagues, where the lowest scoring team gets eliminated each week until there's only one team left standing. The NFL season kicks off on September 4th, so don't wait. Start your league now. Draft now at yahoofantasy.com/LockedOnNFL. That is yahoofantasy.com/LockedOnNFL. Welcome back to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. For your second listen, check out the Locked On Fantasy Football Podcast with hosts Vinny Iyer and Michelle Majuk. Listen every day to prep for your fantasy draft and become the most informed manager so you can take home your league's trophy this season. Find Locked On Fantasy Football on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcasts. All right, Fabs, let's talk about Kenny Pickett, who was traded from the Steelers to the Eagles for like a third-round pick and some pick swaps. And then from the Eagles to the Browns, and now from the Browns to the Raiders. The Raiders did lose Aiden O'Connell to a thumb injury a wrist injury that's expected to keep him out about 8 weeks. It doesn't really matter for Kenny Pickett, his dynasty value, because he has none. But what does it mean for the Cleveland backup quarterbacks?
I mean, we talked about this on yesterday's podcast. Dylan Gabriel needs to be picked. He's at some point he's going to start games this year. And so that clears the path a little bit. From a fantasy standpoint, if we're talking about the Browns offensive skill position players, we want Joe Flacco to play 17 games because that is the best chance for the likes of Jerry Jeudy and Cedric Tillman and David Njoku, Harold Fannin to do the best they can from a fantasy standpoint in terms of putting up points for our teams. You bring in a rookie, you never know what you're really going to get. But Dylan Gabriel is next in line. Now, Marcus believes that the Browns will draft a quarterback next year, and that is very possible. It's very possible. But they're going to give Dylan Gabriel a chance in the regular season at some point because the Browns are going to suck eggs. They're going to be one of the worst teams in the league. So there's no reason to play Joe Flacco all year long, even though fantasy managers would love that. And I don't know that they won't give Shedeur Sanders a look as well. As they say, with real bullets, where they're getting where they're getting him some regular season snaps that matter. I wouldn't be surprised about that either. So maybe we're going to get some clarity in year one. And I get it. Like, it's hard to just go out and look at a player, especially at the quarterback position, who's a rookie, and evaluate him based off of a handful of starts, because a lot of times it takes a little bit more than just one season to really develop into an NFL quarterback. I mean, we don't see Jaden Daniels types or Bo Nix like all the time. It just doesn't happen. I mean, heck, some of the greatest quarterbacks in the history of the league were not great as rookies, and they turned into Hall of Famers. Mm-hmm. So I think it's a good thing from a dynasty perspective that we should see some of Dylan Gabriel in regular season action. We might see some of Shedeur Sanders in regular season action and see what we have, because Joe Flacco will not be on this roster in 2026. And I guarantee you, at least I think that Gabriel and Sanders will be competing next year at this time for a starting job with another potential rookie who the Browns would draft. And of course they have the draft capital, especially high in the draft for next year, to absolutely do that. So, I mean, getting Kenny Pickett out of the way, Marcus, is a good thing because he was worthless to us, but we want to see what we have in Dylan Gabriel and or Shedeur Sanders.
Yeah, that's all it is. And again, Kenny Pickett, I don't think with the Raiders has much value. He's going to be a backup there. He's on a 1-year deal. It's whatever. It just means that we're one play away from seeing Dylan Gabriel or Shador Sanders. I guess it could be either. And based on what we saw from Joe Flacco last year, I mean, there's a chance that like Fab just goes so poorly in the first month of the season that they just have no choice. Like, and this is what I say about all these quarterbacks that get to be in their 40s. Like, it can go south really, really quickly. Like the history of quarterbacks in their 40s being even competent is like one. It's Tom Brady. Like that's it, right? That's the only guy. And now we're expecting all of these guys to be good players or even average players. And more often than not, they can't do that. So I won't be surprised with that schedule that the Browns have. We see Flacco for the first 4 or 5 games, and then it's Dylan Gabriel the rest of the season. And now this Pickett trade has just opened that up to become a possibility. And I am kind of excited to see Gabriel because again, I don't want to overreact to what we saw in the preseason, but it's kind of everything we saw at Oklahoma and at Oregon, where he's just a point guard at the quarterback position. He gets rid of the ball quickly. He's going to throw a lot of passes. It's all in timing. It's in rhythm. Not a lot of shots down the field, but if you have David Njoku, if you've got Harold Fannin, I think the running backs could catch a lot of passes. All of those guys could benefit from Dylan Gabriel playing.
Isn't it funny that there's a guy on that roster who's got a guaranteed contract of $230 million and we're not even talking about him at all?
Well, there's some good reason why we're not talking about him.
At all. It is insane. I wish I could make that kind of money and sit on my rear end. But yeah, that the Browns making that decision so many years ago set the franchise back. And now you're looking at a situation where you've got a 40-something-year-old quarterback with 2 rookies behind him, and no real like clear path to winning significant amount of games in sight for that franchise.
That's why I think next year is going to be the year that they draft a quarterback, right? They've got 2 first-round picks, their own, which we expect to be high, and Jacksonville's, which the range of outcome there is pretty wide.
Yeah.
And I think, honestly, I think what they're trying to see is, are Dylan Gabriel or Shador Sanders good enough to be like a high-end, long-term backup? Kind of the same way that I view like Tyson Bagent with the Bears right now. It's like, you know, one of these guys, you feel pretty good if they have to come in and start for a while, but not maybe somebody that's a franchise-altering quarterback.
Yeah, no question about that. But the Browns, let's just hope that they're going to be a less of a fantasy dumpster fire than they will be a reality dumpster fire. And I think the reality is that they'll get Quinshon Judkins back at some point. They do have some talented pass catchers. Listen, Jerry Jeudy's a good player. I like Cedric Tillman late. Njoku is proven that he could be a top 5 tight end. You know, the Fannin obviously is a pass catching type of playmaker. He's got the potential to do that. So they got some good pieces in place, and that's why I'd rather have Flacco in there for the majority of the season to try and help and at least get the most out of those players. Because when you start a rookie, you never know what you're going to get. And we're not talking about a guy who was picked first overall like a Cam Ward, or a player with a massive pedigree who comes into the league like an Andrew Luck. I mean, we're talking about guys who may or may not last long in the NFL.
I weirdly feel better about the Browns than I do a team like the Colts, who like they know they don't have a quarterback now. They've benched Anthony Richardson. They're playing Daniel Jones, and that's probably going to be just enough to get them to like 8 wins. And then you're going to be out of the top 10 quarterback market. I think the Browns are actually in a good spot to turn things around quickly here. But again, it depends on who that quarterback prospect is and if you get it right. All right, that is it for today's show. We want to thank you for making Locked On Dynasty Football your first listen every single day. Check out the show on YouTube as well. You can follow Fabs on Twitter at Michael_Fabiano. I am at Marcus_Mosher, and we will see you right back here tomorrow with our Wednesday episode with Matt Williamson.